Have you ever imagined a day when Canadians, those kind, polite, and America-loving neighbors, would turn their backs on the very brands that symbolize the American dream? Yet in 2025, that day came. Not through loud protests, not through public outcries, but through quiet decisions. The simplest of acts? They just stopped buying. Canadian consumers began checking labels, questioning origins. If it's not made in Canada, it was worth considering. One man summed it up best. We all have to do our part to support Canada, so from now on, I guess I'll buy Canadian whiskey. This wasn't just about brands. It was about trust, about national pride, and a burning question. Is the image of America slowly fading, even in the eyes of those who once admired it the most? Today, we look back at the top 10 boycotts of American products by Canadians in 2025. And believe me, number 5 will shock you. If you believe in the value of every penny spent, stay until the end. And if these stories spark something inside you, hit subscribe, so we can keep this conversation going honestly, respectfully, and without judgment. Number 1, Starbucks. In just 1 month, Canadians quietly toppled an American icon. No protests, no lawsuits, just a change in morning rituals. Starbucks, once seen as untouchable, was the first to fall. From Toronto to Vancouver, the boycott began to spread like a silent wave. The catalyst? April 2025, when the U.S. suddenly imposed higher tariffs on Canadian imports. Instead of marching in protest, Canadians chose silence and chose different coffee. Boycott Starbucks EA began trending on X, and by the second quarter of 2025, Starbucks revenue in Canada dropped by 22%. A retired teacher in Ontario, once a daily customer for 15 years, said, "I don't hate the brand. I just can't keep spending $6 on an Americano when the roastery around the corner is struggling to survive." This wasn't about caffeine anymore. It was about self-respect, community, and conscious living. Local shops from Montreal to Calgary saw 300% growth. Some had to expand their space. Others couldn't keep up with demand. The Maple Roast app, dedicated to locating Canadian cafes, hit 2 million downloads in just 1 month. Canadians were returning to the values they felt mattered, but not all were cheering. A 28-year-old barista in Quebec shared, "We get why people are upset, but we're just employees, not the ones making U.S. policies." And so a question emerges. Can you protest without hurting your own people? Number 2, McDonald's. You won't hear it in the streets, but walk into any McDonald's across Canada and you'll feel it. Thousands of empty seats. Canadians didn't need signs or speeches. They simply stopped showing up. McDonald's, too, was swept up in the 2025 boycott wave. Following the tariff escalation, revenue in Canadian branches fell by 16%, especially in major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary. A 47-year-old mother in Mississauga recalled, "I used to take my kids there every weekend, but one day my child asked, 'Mom, why don't we eat something from our own country?' That simple question sparked a lifestyle change. Now they eat at local diners where the owners know their names, where the burgers are made from meat raised on Canadian farms. In places like Ottawa and Halifax, local eateries have seen sales rise up to 40%. Many have even had to turn away orders on weekends due to overwhelming demand. But again, not everyone welcomed the change. A 62-year-old McDonald's employee in British Columbia, after 20 years of service, shared, "We're Canadians too. We just wear McDonald's uniforms. Many of these branches are franchised locally, pay local taxes, and hire local workers. So we ask, do we eat to save time or to preserve values?" This wasn't just about food. It became a moment of reflection. When a burger becomes a symbol of trust, what do you choose? Number 3, Amazon. No one expected it, but in 2025, Amazon, the global titan, began to feel the chill from the north. Canadians started closing their accounts, quietly, decisively. And it didn't start with anger. It started with fatigue. When the U.S. expanded tariffs under the Section 301 Act, prices of imports skyrocketed. Each click on Amazon started to feel like supporting something untrustworthy. The Canada E-commerce Association reported a 24% spike in Amazon Prime cancellations within just 2 months. Meanwhile, domestic platforms like Well.ca, Book City, and Etsy Canada saw a surge in traffic. A retired couple in Toronto, once loyal Amazon shoppers, canceled plans to buy a Kindle. The wife said, "We don't hate Amazon, but we've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. Why not support the bookstore at the end of the street?" And from that small decision, a domino effect began. Communities began sharing lists of local stores, writing reviews, and downloading apps like Local Loop to support their neighborhoods. But just like Starbucks and McDonald's, not everyone could weather the storm. An Amazon warehouse owner in British Columbia shared his pain. "We understand why people are leaving, but when they go, it's like they're turning their backs on 200 families who depend on us." Behind every add to cart, there's a real-world impact. Sometimes convenience comes with a cost paid by the entire community. So ask yourself, do you remember the last time you bought something from a store near your home? Could one click erase an entire neighborhood economy? Number 4, Harley Davidson. The next symbol roars even louder, and when it stops moving, people finally understand the importance of loyalty. There was once a time when Harley Davidson meant more than just a bike. It was a sound, a statement, a feeling of freedom. But in 2025, even this untouchable icon faced the consequences of the tariff wars. In just 3 months, Harley sales dropped by over 35% in Canada. Dealerships closed in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Bikers turned to Triumph UK and Ducati Italy, brands once seen as rivals. A retired rider from Manitoba said, "That was the dream of my life. But now I no longer feel proud to take it out on the road." Even repair mechanics in rural areas saw a 60% customer drop. Some switched to repairing farm tools. Some gave up. A silent ride in Vancouver with all-electric bikes spoke louder than protests ever could. If freedom turns its back on you, do you still hold on to the symbol? Or do you let go to honor what it once meant? Number 5. Nike. There was a time when buying Nike meant choosing inspiration. To just do it was a declaration. But in 2025, that declaration grew silent in Canada. After U.S. tariffs hit Canadian exports, Nike sales in Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia dropped 18 to 22%. In their place, local startups and eco-friendly brands like Vessi rose fast. One former sneakerhead from Vancouver gave up his collection after attending a sustainable living workshop. He now wears sneakers made from recycled Canadian plastics. An app called Tread Right, rating ethical supply chains, hit 800,000 plus downloads in just 6 weeks. A shoe doesn't just carry your foot, it carries your values. Would you still wear them if the brand no longer walked your path? Number 6. Budweiser. Every summer from Toronto to Calgary, Budweiser was part of the celebration. But in 2025, those cold cans started disappearing. In the second quarter of 2025, Bud lost 28% of its market share in Canada. Craft beers like Moosehead and Steam Whistle soared by 35% plus. Bars across Halifax, Montreal, and Calgary now proudly display "Craft beer only, proudly Canadian." Even a 12-year Bud distributor in Manitoba said, "I had to switch. Orders vanished. I've done one thing my whole life, but now it's over." For many, it feels like saying goodbye to an old friend. Not out of hate, but because they grew apart. Even a cold beer can speak louder than any political message. Number 7. KFC. Fried chicken used to mean family, flavor, and comfort. That red and white bucket, the warm scent of seasoned grease, the crispy joy passed around dinner tables, generation after generation. But by summer 2025, that feeling shifted. Something snapped. KFC's revenue plunged over 19% in Ontario and Alberta. In its place, a surge in support for local chains like Mary Brown's and indie shops that carried more than chicken. They carried identity. One popular app, Local Bites, reported a 540% increase in searches for Canadian-run fried chicken spots. It wasn't the flavor that changed. It was the feeling behind it. A deep, quiet discomfort that grew louder with every bite. Because when memories collide with ethics, people don't just crave taste. They choose trust over tradition. And that choice speaks volumes. Number 8. U.S. universities. For decades, Canadian families sacrificed, saving every dollar just to give their kids a shot at the American dream. But in 2025, something broke. And not just the dream, but the faith behind it. Applications from Canadian students to U.S. colleges fell 31%, the sharpest drop in 2 decades. At the same time, schools in the UK, Netherlands, and Australia saw a 40% surge in international applicants. Even McGill, UBC, and University of Toronto reported record-breaking early submissions. Why? Because trust moved borders. A degree isn't just education. It's a declaration of where you belong, what you believe in, and where you feel safe enough to grow. The dream didn't die. It just found a new home. Number 9. Levi's. Once upon a time, Levi's meant rebel hearts, cowboy grit, and timeless cool. From runways to ranches, that stitched-on tag held global meaning. But by 2025, Canadian wardrobes began to shift. Not because denim was out of fashion, but because Levi's was out of step. Sales dropped 14% across Canada. Meanwhile, homegrown brands like Frank and Oak and Outland Denim, built on sustainability, fair labor, and storytelling, began to rise. One fashion student in Montreal put it best: "I still love denim, but I don't feel proud of what's stitched in the label." Clothes are our second skin, and these days, that skin is speaking louder. It's saying, "I wear what I believe in." Number 10. Coca-Cola. There was a time when Coca-Cola was more than just a drink. It was nostalgia, celebration, and comfort in a red can. From birthday parties to ball games, it was the taste of childhood. But by 2025, the sparkle started to fade. In Canada, sales of Coca-Cola products declined by 16%, the sharpest dip in over a decade. Health concerns weren't the only reason. It was about consciousness. Canadians began choosing local beverage startups offering sugar-free, plastic-free, and ethically bottled options. One viral campaign, Clean Sip, Clear Conscience, led to over 1 million Canadians pledging to stop buying soda brands linked to plastic waste and questionable water sourcing. It wasn't about quitting soda. It was about rethinking what refreshment means. Because in 2025, what you drink says as much about you as what you stand for. And this time, the fizz lost to the facts. This wasn't just a boycott. It wasn't rage or revenge. It was a reckoning. Canadians didn't stop loving American brands. They simply started loving themselves more. Their communities, their culture, their right to choose what matters. From jeans to Java, from education to ethics, 2025 wasn't the year of rejection. It was the year of redirection. Because when the world feels shaky, sometimes the strongest move is to walk away and build your own path.